So if you don't have Blender, you need to go to blender.org and press this download button. And here you can download the newest version of a Blender, and if you feel experimental you can scroll down and press this button, and here you see the alpha and beta versions. At the moment we don't have any beta versions, but we have 3.3 alpha. So when you launch the Blender you should see something like that. For a different versions it might be a little bit different image, but basically nothing changed for a couple years now, and I don't expect the basic functions to change in the future. And of course if something will change I will update. So if you press anywhere outside of this picture, it will disappear, and we have 3 default objects at the start. That's the famous default cube, the lighting, and the camera. Here I enabled the screencast keys so you could see what I am clicking, so that should help to follow up this video. So first of all, let's move into the scene, and you can orbit around with the middle mouse button. You see this one. If you press it, and you can orbit around your objects and around your scene. If you press here, you can orbit the same like with the middle mouse button, but I would highly recommend to have a mouse because it will make all the process way easier. If you would like to move your view to the side, you can press Shift and middle mouse button. That will move everything basically to where you want. If you want to zoom out, that's the wheel up and down on the mouse, or if you don't have mouse, you can use those. This one will move that, and yeah, basically the same is with moving the objects. If we will select the default cube, we can move it by using this move button, and we can move it on the axis. For example, now I'm moving on the y-axis, that's the green axis, or on the x-axis. If I press here in the middle, I can move it freely. I will press Ctrl Z to get back to the default position. But I have to say almost no one moves objects like that because it's too slow. We have shortcuts in Blender, and to move objects is G. It's basically the shortcut for grab something. So if I press G, I can move objects freely. If I press, for example, Y, I am locked on the Y-axis, and if I press X, I am locked on the X-axis. The same is with the Z. So I can move it like that very fast with the shortcuts, and that's the shortcut G. And the same rules apply to rotating and scaling. For example, here we have those buttons for rotation, and when you hover your mouse on this button, it helps you with your shortcuts. Actually, it shows you that the shortcut for rotation is R, and here is the scale. For scale, of course, it's S. So, for example, if I press this, I have those gizmos, and the same is for the scale. But as I mentioned before, we usually use shortcuts that are for rotation, and if I press R twice, I can rotate it freely. If I press R once, and for example, if I press X, I can lock it on the axis. And the same is with scaling. So if I press S and Y, I can scale it on the axis that I want. So now let's talk about the modes. And usually we are working in 2 modes. In this video we will have a third mode at the end, but now let's talk about the object mode and the edit mode. You can see that if I click this, I have more modes, for example, vertex paint, sculpt mode, and texture paint, weight paint. We are not gonna use this in this beginner level, so we will talk about those two for now. So in the object mode, we are moving, usually we are adding objects, we are moving objects, rotating, scaling, and in the edit mode, we are adjusting the shape of the object. You can see that we have a different menu when we are in the edit mode compared to the object mode, and our cube looks a little bit different. And one more note before we are moving into the edit mode, the shortcut for switching between object mode and edit mode is the tab on your keyboard. So if I press tab, it will switches between those modes very fast. I know that's a lot of information, but we also need to talk about those selection modes. And in 3D, we basically have vertices, that's those corners, those dots. So in this mode, we can select those vertices and we can adjust them. For example, if I press G, I can move it and I will have a weird shape. I will get back by Ctrl Z. And if I select this, I can jump into the edge select mode and I can select edges. And for example, if I move this, I will move all the edge. I can scale it. I can do a lot of things. Again, I will get back to the default cube. And the third one is the face select mode. Faces are basically those faces between the edges. Again, I can select the face and I can adjust it like I want. So now when we have all of those basics, we can get back to the object mode. So I will press tab and I would like to delete the cube, which I don't need anymore. We will add another shape. So we can press delete or we can press X. If we press X, it will give me this option to delete. And now I would like to add another shape. So we can press this add and add mesh, and we have different options, different shapes to add. And again, I would like to show you the shortcuts. So to add something, we usually use Shift A, and that's the faster way to add the shapes. We need the planes, so I just click on this. And we have the plane. I will scale it up. I will make it a little bit bigger. So I will press S and I will expand it. We have bigger plane and we can jump into the edit mode by pressing tab. And I would like to jump into the edge select mode. I would like to extrude one wall basically for the background. So I'll press numpad 1 to go into the front view. So I want to make sure that I'm looking forward. I'll select this edge at the back and I would like to extrude it. To do that, again, we can press this button, but we never used that. We can press E and now I can extrude another face. I would like to lock it on the Z axis, so I'll press Z. And now I can extrude it up without any movement to the sides. So that's gonna be my floor and that's gonna be the background. In this video, we will create a scene very similar to the scene from one of my videos. I think that's called Tinder is completely useless. I created a very simple scene in the forest with the campfire. I think we can recreate that in this beginner lesson. First of all, we need a log on which our character will sit. Again, let's get back to the object mode and press Shift A and search for the cylinder. Cylinder is the closest shape to the log, I think. So we have a cylinder which is quite smooth. I would like to make it more cornered, more low poly. So if I do not click anywhere, I have this menu. And if you clicked anywhere else, for example, like that menu disappears and it is not appearing again. If you did that, you need to delete this and add another cylinder. Now I have this menu which I can expand, and I would like to reduce number of vertices. You can see we have 32 vertices, which is too much. I would like to make it more low poly. For example, if I make 3 vertices, I have this shape, and if I make 4 vertices, I have this almost a cube. But I will make something like 9, maybe 8. Let's make a 9. And now I can click away, and I have a shape. This log that we created is placed vertically. I need to make it horizontal, so I need to rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis. So I'll press R, 90, and I will lock it on the y-axis. And now it rotates completely 90 degrees on the y-axis. It looks like this. It's too thick and too short. I will scale it on the x-axis. I'll press S, X, and I will expand it to something like that. Now I would like to make it thinner. Again, I will scale it by pressing S, and now I will lock the x-axis. I don't want to scale it on the x-axis, I want to scale it on the y and z. To lock one axis, we can press Shift and X, and with this command, we are not going to scale on the axis that we selected. In this case, that's the x-axis. So I will scale it to something like that. Maybe I need to scale it up a little bit more. So S, Shift X, maybe something like that. And now it is in the ground. I would like to move it a little bit up. So I'll press G and Z, and I will move it a little bit up. That's great. We have our log, and I will move it a little bit on the y-axis to the back. So again, G, Y, and something like that. And now we need a campfire. For this campfire, we need some rocks. And for rocks, I will add another shape. So I'll press Shift A, and I will maybe use icosphere. Let's add it and see how it looks. It looks okay. I will move it a little bit up, so G and Z. But it is too perfect, too symmetrical, and I would like to make it like a rock, to make it asymmetrical, add some bumps, just deform it. So I will go into the edit mode. I'll press Tab, and now I'm in the edit mode. And I will choose this vertex select mode. It will be easier to work in this mode, and I can select, for example, those parts, and I will press G, and I will move those in. Again, I can select those, G in, maybe those out, and I will deform it until I like it. If I select half of the rock, it looks like that I select the half of it. But in reality, I selected only those vertices that I can see in my viewport. I didn't select vertices in the back. If we want to select all the vertices in our range, we have this button, the X-ray button, and now I can see through. And if I select those, I can select basically all of those vertices. So if I press G, I can move it like that. I can scale it down. I select very random things, and I try to randomize this rock. And I will tab it out to the object mode, and I will turn off the X-ray, and we'll see how it looks. I think it looks like a rock. That's quite fine. So we can scale it down. We can press S and decrease the size, and let's move it on the ground. So G, Z, and move it on the ground. Maybe let's scale it down a little bit more. And now I need more rocks. First of all, I will move this from the center. I will move it to the side a little bit. So I'll press G. I will disable the Z axis, so Shift Z, and now it moves only on X and Y axis. It doesn't move up and down. I'll move it to somewhere here. So now I would like to duplicate this rock, and I will press Shift D, and if I move my mouse, you can see I have another rock. And that's great, but I would like again to disable movement on the Z axis, so I'll press Shift Z and I'll move it to here. And I will do this again and again, and I will make it in the circle. I will press numpad 7 and I will look at our scene from the top. I can use this gizmo and press on Z, and now also I achieve the same thing. I look at it from the top view. When I look from the top view, I can't move basically in the Z axis. I can, for example, press G and Z, and in that way I am moving my object on this axis, but if I press only G, it just moves on the X and Y axis. So it's easier to work in that way. Let's make a bunch of duplicates of this rock, and let's create the campfire. Shift D. Let's move it, Shift D, Shift D, Shift D. I think they are too close to the logs, so I'll move them here. I'll move this here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And now those rocks look exactly the same. I will use the same rocks. I am not going to deform them again, but I will adjust them. I will rotate them a little bit, and I will scale some of those, and they will look a little bit different. So for example, if I select this rock and if I press R, I can rotate it, and now it looks different. I can move it up, G and Z. Again, I can do the same with this one, just rotate it differently. And if I select this, I can rotate it, but I can press R twice, and now I can rotate it freely. So I can rotate it like that. So let's do this exercise with all of those rocks. Whoa, I selected the wrong thing. Okay, a couple more left. Now I will go into this view, into top view, and I will scale up some rocks to make them in different size. Whoa, that's too big. Rotate it. Whoa. So I think that's good. All of those rocks look different, but they are exactly the same. Now I think it's a good idea to add those things that we duplicated in one folder in those collections. We can press this. Let's select the scene collection and press this plus button, and that will create a new collection or folder. You can call it whatever you want, and I will name this rocks. And our rocks are those icospheres, so I will select them all. I will select the first one, hold shift and select this one, and I'll just drop them into the rocks collection. That's the basic collection. We can rename those things. For example, the cylinder we can rename to log. The icosphere is our default rock, which we can drop into the rocks collection. The plane is the ground. And now we have cleaner file, and we did some work so we can save our file, because it happens, computers crash, and I would recommend save files regularly. Just file save as, I will name it Blender Intro version 2, and that's going to be my file. And the next time when I will need to save, I'll just press Ctrl S, and that will save the file. So now we can work on the wood in the campfire, and we can work with a similar principle to creating this log. We can create another cylinder. Make sure that you are in the object mode. I will keep the same 9 vertices. I will scale it, press Shift Z to something like that, and I will scale it on the Z axis to something like that. I will move it up with G, and I will rotate it, and I think that's good. I'll move it here, and that's quite good. I'll go into the top view by pressing numpad 7. I will rotate it a little bit, and again I will duplicate it a lot. Shift D, rotate, Shift D, rotate. I'll move it here, Shift D, rotate it, Shift D, rotate it, maybe rotate it like that a little bit, Shift D, rotate it, maybe let's add one more. And how does it look? Okay, I will adjust the length of those a little bit. I think I would like to make this one a little bit bigger, so I will scale it up. Maybe the front ones I will make some smaller, and I will duplicate it and make it even smaller. Move it down. Do something like that. I think that's quite good. And we have our scene. I will save it by pressing Ctrl S. And now we can add colors. Maybe let's start with the log. And let's click on this ball. I don't know how to call it. And we have the materials tab. I'll press plus on the new, and I'll rename it to wood. And here in the base color, I can change the color. I can make it some kind of a brownish and make it a little bit darker. And we don't see any color. That's because we are in the solid mode. Here is another modes bar which you need to be aware of. So the first ball is the shading view. That shows all our objects in the wireframe mode. We see the vertices, and we don't see any fillings. Here we see the fillings only, and here we see everything in color. So that's the color of the wood, and it's a little bit bright, but don't worry too much. We will adjust the lighting, and that should be fine. It is reflecting the light too much, so let's scroll down a little bit in here and adjust the roughness. For example, if you increase the roughness, so again I will select this one and I will add the same wood material. So I can create new and select wood, and I can do that with other logs, or I can select them all. Where are our logs? This one. I think I selected all, and as the last I would like to select the wood that I would like to take the material from, and I will press Ctrl L and I will link materials, and now all of those will have the same material. Let's add the color to the background. So I'll create new, I will name it background, and I will make it black. I will move this down, and again I will increase the roughness to the max. And now we have the rocks. Again, another material. I will rename it to rock, and I will make it gray. Again, I will select all of the rocks by holding shift, and the last rock will be the one that has the material on. Ctrl L, link materials, and all of the rocks will have the same material. So that's great. We have everything ready. Again, let's save, Ctrl S, and our file is saved. And now I think we can add the character to the scene to make the scene a little bit more interesting. So there are two ways to add the character. We can file, append, and go to the file. I will give you the file that I'm using right now. I will leave the link in the description. So this is gonna be the character for the course, and it will have a textures folder. So I will open this up. It will take a second to open. And what's cool about the Blender that you can open as many Blender files as you want. Maybe not as much as you want, because we have the RAM limitations, but it will let you open multiple files. And you probably see this with security reasons. Just allow that. That's because of the rig. And I have my character, I have this collection. We can select all by pressing A in the scene, and we can just copy it. So Ctrl C and go to our file and press Ctrl V. And that's how you can add objects from other files. So that's the super convenient way to add objects from other files. And now we added a bunch of things which we don't want. And I will get back by Ctrl Z. I will redo this, and I will create another collection for the character. So I will press this. I will rename this to character, and now I'll press Ctrl V. And now all of those things will go into this collection. And if I want, I can disable it and enable it. It will be easier to work in that way. And I don't know why, but this copying of the rigged character has one flaw. And here it is. If I select basically the rig, this thing, and I will move it on the x-axis, so G and X, you see that I have this skeleton duplicated, and it's in our way, and I don't really want that, and I want to delete it. So I will disable my collection, and I will disable the rocks, and I will select all of those, and I will press X and delete, and now those will be deleted. I will re-enable my things, and I will move my character. I will select this rig, and I'll press G and X, and I will move it back. I will move it closer to the log, so I'll press G and Y, and I think it's kind of in the right scale, but if it's too big or too small, again you can press S and you can scale it up or scale it down. Now we will learn about another mode. I mentioned in the beginning that we will work with three modes. So far we had object, edit and edit mode, but now when we have the rig, this thing, when you select this thing, we have another mode, and that's the pose mode. And if we go into the pose mode, we can adjust the rig, and the character will move based on that. For example, if I select this cube, and if I will move it down, for example G, and if I will move it like that, the character will sit on the log. And if I select this, and if I will move it like that, he will lower his arms, and if I go to the side, I can move them closer to him, and I can move this closer to him, and that's basically setting the pose. The elbows goes too much in, so I can select this. I can look at it from, actually I have to select this, and I can go into a little bit view from the top, and I can rotate it, and I can rotate elbows out. I will do the same with this one, and that's basically setting the pose. And in the animation we set a lot of poses, and that's basically animating. We just need to add the keyframes, and that's how we animate those characters. So I have a character sitting on the log. You can do your own stuff. You can adjust all the scene, you can adjust the character, you can adjust the pose in the way that you want. You just select the bones, and for example you rotate, you can move it. It's up to you. You can adjust, for example, legs. You can actually, we need to press this, and we can make him sit with the wider pose and something like that. So it's up to you. Now you can play with the scene, make it in the way that you think it looks good, and once you're done, continue with this video. So I get back to the object mode, and now let's talk about those things. That's the camera that we have, and that's the light that we have. And if we will go to this mode, viewport shading mode, now our scene will react to the lighting that we have. So for example, if I will move my light closer to the character, it will be brighter and it will cast shadows, etc. So I can adjust the lighting. And here is the camera. We can move the camera like we do with all the objects. We can press G and move it. If you want to go to the camera view, there is a button, this one, and this is what I see from my camera. Of course, there is a shortcut. It's numpad 0. It jumps to the camera view, and from the camera view you can just select the camera, press G and move it. But there is one very cool way to move the camera, and that's when you are in the camera view, you can go view, navigation, and walk navigation. I'll press right mouse button, and here should be, I'll do that again, view, navigation, walk navigation. And if I press right mouse button, I can add it to quick favorites. And when I add it, you see I already added to quick favorites, you can press Q, and here you can see I have a fly and walk navigation. I use basically only the walk navigation, and if I press this, now I can move like in the computer game. If I press A, I move to the left side. If I press D, I move to the right side. If I press W, I move forward. If I press S, I move back. And if I press E, I move up. And if I press Q, I move down. So, and of course I am adjusting the view with my mouse. So I will select the view that I would like to see from my camera. I will get back a little bit, and I would like to see it like that. My background is a little bit too narrow, so I will select my background right now, and I will scale it on the x-axis to fit my scene. And that's basically my scene. I think I will move this light a little bit to the front, to something like that. And let's see how it looks. And I will go to this light settings. I will change the color to a little bit bluish, to something like moon color, and I will decrease the power to something like 500 to make it not that powerful, maybe 300 to something like that. And that's how my image looks like. And if I would like to render my image, I can go to render and render image. And that's how my image looks like. I can go to image, save as, and I can save this image to my computer.